So Pettis versus Diaz was great for a couple of reasons. First off, and I'm talking to you as a fan right now, so not the X's and O's of the fight and an analyst, but as a fan. So you have multiple things. First off, you have Anthony Pettis at 170 pounds, which has proven to be a great idea. Okay, and fun. Brand new parody for Anthony Pettis, right? And I know this is his only second time in there, but really fun guy to have in the mix, particularly when he's threatening that he could also go back down to 155. I like that. I like guys where you can start matching them up all sorts of different ways. For me, that's fun. Then, guys, I must tell you, and I don't know if this came through on the broadcast, but when Nate Diaz walked into the building, and you could back up to the weigh-ins, or you could fast forward to the fight itself. I mean, this was a special event for the people that were there live. They were so happy to see him. The reaction that he got, right? And I don't actually know where Stockton is, by the way. I must tell you that. I've been there. Geographically, I don't know where it is in relation to Anaheim, but it counted. Or I don't know, California as a whole or what, but it counted. And they were there to see him, and they did not make a secret. Pettis, poor Pettis, nicest guy in the world. He's getting booed. Diaz is getting cheered. I mean, the storylines are quite simple. You got the good guy versus the bad guy, right? Forget about who good and bad is. This is what the audience has decided. So you have an electricity. That's the word that I'm trying to use for you. Okay, great. Fight starts. Now, if I was to tell you how that fight was going to go before that fight happened, I will tell you very confidently that Anthony Pettis wins the first round. Pettis is just a little quicker. He's got more momentum. I mean, right? Don't forget, Diaz has been out for 3 years. There's something to be said for that. You know, what generally happens, we call it ring rust. But if you're to break ring rust down to what does it mean? It means the guy's timing is off. It means the guy's going to have bad timing. Well, Pettis isn't going to suffer from that. Pettis is going to get to his target. He's going to use some leg kicks. I would tell you quite confidently that Pettis was going to win the first round. And that Diaz, very likely, for all of the reasons that I already stated, talking about the electricity, talking about the feel of the crowd, the home court advantage. And the other thing to be said for 3 years off, it doesn't always just equal ring rust. A lot of times it equals refreshing. A guy comes in refreshed, not only with a good feeling body, he's got a clear mind. He isn't sitting there all the time thinking about this. He's just got a clear mind, a clear head, fresh body. Okay. So I thought that Diaz would have good potential the way that he fights and with the pressure and pace that he can keep on and with the damage that he's proven to be able to absorb to then be able to come back and grab rounds 2 and 3 and leave with a decision. This was my official prediction. Before the fight, great. I was not positive that Diaz would be able to win rounds 2 and 3. I thought that he could. I was very quite sure that Pettis was going to win the first round. So it was extra special to come out and see Nate, who was exactly what he promised to be. A guy who had been working his ass off in the room, who never took his eye off the ball, who prepared to fight Dustin Poirier, went through a full camp for it, all but a week, and then went in another camp and was able to fight Pettis. And I use the word camp. These are like fight guy terms. They're not even my terms. The fight industry has won me over to have to use a term like camp is for children. I haven't the foggiest idea why we say camp. But I'll tell you other terms that get overused in this space is training. I see guys go to practice and then all of a sudden they call it training. Or I see a guy go and do a workout and he will tell people he was training. Training is significantly different than practice. You train when you are in this, you train for a certain period of time. Training means you eat, sleep, and breathe the event that you're preparing for. It doesn't mean you go in and break a sweat with the boys, shower up, and go home. But it is different. Your intensity is different. It creates a different kind of shape and a different kind of sharpness, which goes back to a guy being out 3 years. Is he going to come in a little bit rusty? Diaz said no. Diaz said, as a matter of fact, I haven't even been out for 3 years. Forget about the last time you saw me compete. I've been doing this in the gym. Very common story. A lot of guys tell it. A lot of guys try to convince you it's true, and they try to convince themselves it's true. With every now and then, we just saw Uriah Faber do it, but now we just saw Nate Diaz. It's true. It's very true. So Nate comes out. He puts a pace on Pettis right off the bat. And Pettis was feeling the size a little bit, I think. I'd be very curious. And California did weigh those guys in. I would be very curious what they both weighed on fight day. And I don't think it's a meaningful amount enough to create a story around. But Diaz was pushing Pettis backwards in a way that Pettis does not usually deal with. It would lead you to believe that Pettis was fighting a much bigger fighter. And I'm not sharing for you that he was. That's how he was fighting. Okay. I mean, they start going tit for tat. Pettis is getting plenty of strikes in. And a lot of people weren't able to observe that because the crowd was acting like it wasn't happening. And every time Nate did anything, the crowd was going wild. And Nate was moving forward. And in a mixed martial arts competition, that just perception and look-wise is helpful. Either way, Nate's finding Pettis a lot more and a lot more often than I thought he would in this fight that early on. Rounds 2, oh my God, I would say it was 9 minutes in, and it was a different Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis had faded tremendously, which is your entire goal in a fight, is to just wear the other guy out. It's a battle of wills. And wills, people always think that means toughness. Well, what does toughness mean? Toughness just means conditioning. Whoever's got the bigger heart, whoever's tougher than the other guy, just means he can hold up longer. And about 9 minutes in, Diaz is really wearing Pettis down. Now, for me, Pettis is gaining points because I can see he's hurting. I can see he's tired. I could see he just as soon that fight be over and they go to the cards right then. But he did anything but give up. He stays there. He's going for submissions on Nate. He's trying to find positions. He's trying to scramble. I, as a fan, really wanted that. I, as a fan, wanted to see them on the ground because Pettis is so incredibly underrated with his ground skills. Diaz is known for his Cesar Gracie black belt level ground skill, but I wanted to see him there. And I wanted to see a little bit of Nate on top and a little bit of Nate on the bottom, a little bit of Anthony on top, a little bit of Anthony on bottom. I got my way. I was so happy to get my way, but there was one bigger surprise, aside from the fact that Nate was able to implement that pace so early, which was the takedown, and it was done by Nate. Nate went out there, got the takedown, got on top of Pettis, and that is a surprise. That's not something, if you were to study their previous fights and you were to guess that one of the two was going to go for a takedown, who is more likely to get it? I think most of you would agree. You would have thought it would be Pettis. But Nate ended up on top. And we talked to Nate afterwards, and Nate said, you know what, I've been wrestling with Division I guys. I've actually been doing this for a number of years because that's who's joined my gym. He said, I don't know enough about wrestling to even know what Division I meant or the significance. In fact, matter of fact, when Nate was trying to tell this story, and he was not trying to be funny, he was just trying to tell the story, he kept calling Division 100. Yeah, I got Division 100 wrestling. I got Division 100 guys in my room. I mean, this is how little he knew. But the point is, call it through osmosis if you want to. Turned out Nate learned some pretty damn good wrestling, right? Offensively and defensively. I just think it was a surprise for many people how good Nate looked. And that's, guys, I haven't even got into the good part yet. That's the fight, in case any of you didn't see it. Let's get to the good stuff. Time for Nate to cut an interview, which means Nate's going to call somebody out. We all know who that's going to be, don't we? It's going to be Conor McGregor. It's going to be the big money fight. It's going to be the finality to the trilogy. Going to call out a guy who's available, who owes him a fight, who he owes a fight. It makes sense. Problem is, you're never going to get it. Right? I mean, the likelihood of getting it. For some reason, they're pocketing that fight. They're saving that fight. They plan to do that fight later. Oh, and by the way, Nate has gone up to 170 pounds. When Conor comes back, he's just more likely to go 155. And Conor isn't back. So that's the problem with wasting your airtime on that. Well, great, because Nate didn't. He called out George Masvidal. There is nothing more bankable at a box office than a bad guy versus a bad guy. The heel versus the heel. Stone Cold versus The Rock. Nothing works better, and it never happens because the bad guys always stick together. The one time every 2 decades that they go off script and you get the bad guy versus the bad guy, you have a very special night of business. They will sell out any arena that they want to. They will do incredible pay-per-view numbers any way you want to do it. And guess what? Because the title is not on the line, that is likely to be a co-main event, which means whatever pay-per-view they land on, you're likely to then get a title fight on top of that. Similar as you got yesterday. As great as this fight was, DC and Stipe are still coming up. It's one of those situations I'm just predicting for it because I love the storylines. The punches and kicks are really great for me, but I love the storylines. And not for nothing, George Masvidal deserves this. And again, I talked to Nate after the fight, right on ESPN. That's what Nate said. I said, Nate, why did you call out George? By the way, why did you call out Masvidal? Nate said, you know what? I really like Masvidal. I really like Masvidal's style. Masvidal's been doing this as long as I have. He's actually been doing it longer than I have. Where's his opportunity? Where's my opportunity? George Masvidal deserves. I know it comes with a big payday. I know it comes with a whole bunch of fanfare and attention. This is what Masvidal deserves, and that's why I called him out. And for me, that's the truth. And the truth is what works. Don't manufacture conflict. If you're calling a guy out, even if it's bad guy versus bad guy, and you're doing one nice thing, it's not enough to make a face turn, but he is proving his point. His point is, I respect that guy. Something good should happen to that guy. I'm going to make sure it does. You may believe that I'm selfish. You may believe I'm an anti-hero. But for one guy who happens to be George Masvidal, I'm going to be his hero. And I'm going to help him out. I respect that. And I will look forward to that.